Hello, lovely people. I hope everyone has had a wonderful August. I know I have. It was a very busy August for me. Very long August, actually, for me too. We went on vacation earlier in the month, and I ended up reading a lot of books this month. More than my 5 that I usually do a month. So I think it was more like, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nearly 7. So nearly 7 books, so 2 more than normal. And I say nearly 7 because I'm almost done with 1. Actually, I'm almost done with 2 books. But we'll get to that in just a minute. So, grab yourself some tea. I have gotten myself a little bit of tea here. It is rose, lavender, and a little bit of mint. And I think I put some jasmine in there too, if I'm not mistaken. So good. Anyway, we will get started with what I read this month. Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, the 3rd in the Throne of Glass series. I gave it like a 3 stars. It's not that good of a book as far as Sarah J. Maas universe goes. It's okay. It basically is just kind of moving the story along forward. So starting with Queen of Shadows, you can only get it through Audible. And then after that is Empire of Storms and then Tower of Dawn. So I should be starting Empire of Storms soon, although I've kind of been taking a little bit of a break from Sarah. I know I want to go ahead and finish the rest of it because I never did finish the Throne of Glass series. So hopefully we'll get started on that soon, but I may end up skipping her this month. I don't know yet. I didn't add it onto the TBR. If I have a really strong feeling to actually listen to her this month, then I will. And just add it on there because I've already got it on my device. So there you go. I read Vanessa Yu's Magical Pears Tea Shop. This was supposed to be a kind of nice cozy little break from Sarah J. Maas and kind of that higher fantasy sort of books. A break from the violence, a break from sword fighting, that kind of thing. So it was an okay book. I didn't think it was that good. There were parts of it I really enjoyed, but the story itself got a little, I don't know, I just didn't agree with some of the choices that the author made as far as the decisions that the character made, especially near the end of the book. So that's all I'll say there. There were parts of it that I did like, though. I liked the fact that she could tell fortunes. I'm sorry, the main character could tell fortunes. She had a relative that also could tell fortunes, and how they kind of dealt with having that power. They also talked a lot about tea, which was awesome because I absolutely love tea. They also did a lot of description of Paris and France, and I thought that was really nice in there. I thought it was an alright book. It wasn't my favorite book. It's probably like a 2.5 out of 5 stars, so 2.5, 3-ish. So the story itself was about a girl, Vanessa. I think she's around like 26, 27 years old. She's never been to Paris. She's part of a Chinese family, a large Chinese family. A lot of stories that I've read before where Chinese families are really large. Like the members of the family are always like really involved in the main character's life. So that's the kind of amusing thing I find in stories like this. Where her aunties are kind of always in her business, and it's just kind of funny because I have never had relatives that were always like up in my business. We've always been very private people, and I think that's like a very like waspy white sort of thing. We kind of just leave each other alone. But Vanessa's Chinese family, they're always in each other's business all the time. So that's part of the thing that's so funny about the story. She also has the power to prophesize. She can tell people's fortunes based on if she's drinking tea or it seems like any kind of beverage, but she uses whatever she's drinking as like a conduit to gain the magic of the fortune telling, so that she can actually tell the fortunes themselves. So it's explained a little bit in the book. So what ends up happening is that this power is more like a curse to her, because she's always telling the fortune of somebody dying, or something bad is going to happen, or your husband that you just married is going to be cheating on you in X number of years. There's always some kind of really negative outcome. So she hates this power that she has. So she has a relative who's her aunt, who's going to be opening a tea shop in Paris. Actually, she doesn't live there yet. She ends up living there later in the book. The aunt decides to take in Vanessa and try to help her with her powers, and so they go to Paris. So then the rest of the novel is set in Paris, and there's a lot of really good description of Paris. There's a lot of talk about tea, a lot of talk about food. This book is so full of food. It's amazing. I personally don't eat a carnivore or a omnivore diet. I actually am a vegetarian, pretty much vegan 98% of the time. That's just my personal choice. No offense to anybody. Everybody can eat what they want to eat. That's my opinion. So reading some of the food that they're talking about, while some people are probably like, oh, that's delicious, oh, that sounds so good, I'm over here going, oh my gosh, that sounds so rich. I don't think I could even stomach that. So just let you know there. But some of it's really nice. The descriptions of the tea is really good. So that was a plus. I thought the only thing I really didn't like about the book was kind of the choices that the main character was making, and how she thought about this gift that she has. The gift ends up changing a little bit later on to kind of suit what she really wants in life, which is fine. But to have a power like that and to not try to understand it and just to be stubborn about it, it just didn't jive well with me. So other than the character herself, I kind of like the rest of the book. If it had just been a little bit different in the story, like from the character's perspective, from the character herself, if it had just been told a little bit differently, I probably would have loved it. So anyway, that's Vanessa Yu's Magical Paris Tea Shop by Roselle Lim. The next book I went to, the next book that I read was The Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. I actually did a longer review on that, so I will link that here. I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was surprisingly good. I thought it was going to be a lot like The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, but it was even better than The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, and I thought that book was really good. So I gave this like 4.5. It's not like the most wow, outstanding book ever, but it was really good. The storytelling was awesome. The idea was so different from other fantasy that I have read. So I highly recommend that book, and I cannot wait for the next one to come out, which is The Heart of the Sun Warrior, I think is what it's called. Yes, The Heart of the Sun Warrior. So I'm excited for that, and that comes out in November. So I think if I don't get it right away, sorry, I have something in my eye. If I don't end up getting it right away, I will probably wait until January or maybe around Christmas time to pick that one up, and I will probably go ahead and get it on my Kindle and pay for it on the Kindle. It may come out on Libby when it comes out, though, but I'll check and see on Libby when it comes out. It may end up on there. The next book that I read in August was The Stationery Shop by Marjane Kamali. I apologize if I said that wrong. Marjane Kamali. I read this based off of Emma reading that it was on her list of what she was reading. I am subscribed to her on Goodreads as well, just because I'm always curious to see what she's up to. I liked the book a lot. I thought it was a very interesting idea. The story follows the protagonist, who is a young girl who's growing up in Iran. This is all taking place in Tehran. This is during the 1950s, before, I think it's the Iranian Revolution that's going on. Something like that was going on. I know that it was the fall of the Prime Minister Mossadegh, I believe. There was a lot of Western influence in Iran before the fall of that Prime Minister. It was a very different country. There were a lot more Western ideas. Women were not forced to wear the head coverings. I think that some of, like, a major part of the population that wasn't, like, as religious as the rest of the population, they thought it was a much better time. Times have changed, very different now. It was an interesting book how the protagonist, the girl who's growing up there, it's basically following her early life and her falling in love with a boy who is part of this rebel front, who is supporting the Prime Minister and trying to support a more Western way of life in Tehran. What ends up happening, and this isn't really a spoiler or anything like that, is that they're supposed to get married and it doesn't happen. Events and also outside influences cause them not to be together. It's basically unrequited love story, and then what happens with the rest of their lives after that, and you find out what happened and why their lives were not how they had planned out and how others ended up manipulating the situation. So that aspect of it is really, really neat. I enjoyed that story quite a lot. It made me so heartbroken in so many ways, just reading that text. I don't cry very often when I read books, but there were parts in this that were very emotional to me, and I may do a further review on it. Probably I would give this as well a 4 or a 4.5, because it was really solid storytelling. I don't think it's something I'm probably going to be picking up again anytime soon, but maybe a few years from now I'll be like, oh yeah, that one really made me feel something, so I might pick that up again. Anyway, I recommend anyone read it. It's a very good read. If you get it on audiobook like I did, the narrator does an excellent job of reading it, so recommend that one definitely. The next book that I read in August, The Wind in the Willows. So cute, so beautiful. I should have read this years ago, but I don't think I ever really knew a book existed. I watched the PBS series when I was a very young child. I just remember parts of that. I think they were like claymation or some kind of a stop motion animation, if I'm correct. So when I went into this is the very first book I decided to start tabbing. And I like doing it. I like writing my thoughts in these books. I have never annotated before. I have watched a lot of YouTube videos where they talk about annotating and what they do and how they do it. So I just kind of went with my own feelings on annotating, and I decided that for this copy, anything that I tabbed in green were descriptions. Descriptions of the surroundings, of the backdrop, you know, descriptions of the setting. Descriptions of the setting is what I want to say. And so what I would do is I would just tab that, and then I would underline in pencil. I decided I don't want to do pen. I wanted to do pencil just in case I needed to erase anything later down the road. I'm one of these people that if I start marking stuff up in pen, I'm going to make a mistake and it's going to look terrible. So I went ahead and just did pencil. They're not perfectly straight lines when I underline either. I go with just, you know, my personal hand. I have seen people take rulers though and do their do their underlining with rulers, which isn't a bad idea. I just have to find a little ruler to get. So I may do that. But there were just some really beautiful things said in this book. And I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was. I didn't want to put it down. I didn't blow through it in like a day. It's just whenever I would pick it up and start reading it, of course I would end up with some other distraction that needed my attention. So I kept putting it down. And then my Libby holds would come up and they say, oh, they're available. So then I'd snag them and then I'd start reading those. And then I'd have a limited number of days on Libby to actually read. And so then I'd keep putting this down so I can go back to it. It's not going anywhere. So that's why. So it took me, I don't know, I think maybe a week to get through this completely. Maybe a week and a half. So, but it is a short read if you don't put it down. I love Kenneth Graham's, just the things he had to say in here. The description of the forests, the rivers. I think my favorite quote is it's pretty near the beginning of the book where it says, after all, the best part of a holiday is perhaps not so much to be resting yourself as to see all other fellows busy working. Who doesn't love watching people work when you're on holiday? It's just so true. So I thought that this was an introvert summed up very succinctly. Once well underground, he said, the badger, you know exactly where you are. Nothing can happen to you and nothing can get at you. You're entirely your own master and you don't have to consult anybody or mind what they say. Things go on all the same overhead, and you let 'em and don't bother about 'em. When you want to, up you go, and there the things are waiting for you. I think that's perfect. Let me see if I can get a really good description of the surroundings, the backdrop. This is chapter 9, Water Rat's perspective. To all appearance, the summer's pomp was still at fullest height, and although in the tilled acres green had given way to gold, though rowans were reddening, and the woods were dashed here and there with tawny fierceness, yet light and warmth and color were still present in undiminished measure, clean of any chilly premonitions of the passing year. The constant chorus of orchards and hedges had shrunk to a casual even song from a few yet unwearied performers. The robin was beginning to assert himself once more, and there was a feeling in the air of change and departure. It's just so beautiful. I don't know. Absolutely loved it. Wind of the Willows. If you have not read it, read it. Characters are fun. I think Mr. Badger is my spirit animal completely. I'm on board with him. He and I get along smartly, I believe. All the descriptions of migration, all of the descriptions of nature, all of the descriptions of the characters themselves. I absolutely love this book, so recommend it. Anybody read it. So those are all the normal books that I got through for the month of August. And so now, dear reader, we go to Smut Corner. I gotta come up with some kind of stupid animation or something for Smut Corner. I have no idea. I think it'd be really fun to just do something like, you know, some dumb 70s porn music or something stupid like that and just go Smut Corner. Anyway, in the Smut Corner we had King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. Whew, the spice. The spice is real in this one. Oh my goodness. I loved it. Absolutely adored it. So it's a male-female again. So same as last month with the aliens and Ruby Dixon and all of that. What I appreciated about this book is that the character was not a virginal young woman from the outset. Finally! Oh my goodness, in most romance I read, the main woman character or the main love interest or one of the main protagonists, you know, usually they start off as these virginal, you know, girls or boys maybe. I guess it just depends on which genre you're reading. But your main character ends up starting as this virginal, pure person that maybe has had, oh, I've had bad thoughts. Oh, I cannot act on those things. Oh, what do I do? You know, and then the story progresses. They magically learn everything that the prostitutes know. It makes no sense whatsoever. So anyway, this book had the main female protagonist as, I think she was 26 years old, actually, which is a little bit older than normal, which is great. And then she was also sexually active. She was just a sexually active individual. She was actually just done with a fellow who was probably going to be her husband at some point, but she's decided that she doesn't want anything to do with him. He's too boring in bed. She doesn't want anything to do with him any further. Enter in Dracula type guy. He's a whole heck of a lot like described like Alucard from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. One other, I think it was either Book Talk or BookTube, but I don't remember. One other person made the comment that this was if Castlevania was a romance novel. That's it. Exactly it. So, and our main female protagonist is a fighter. She is an absolute fighter. She knows how to defend herself because this land that they're all in is filled with monsters, filled with darkness, filled with danger. So you gotta know how to fight even if you are a princess. And that's, you know, that is what she is. So there is the princess and the king trope, and oh, the king, you know, wants to find a bride and all of that nonsense going on. But anyway, it was a nice kind of different twist, if you will, on a romance. So the king in this book is named King Adrian, and the female protagonist is named Isolde. She ends up meeting him out on the battlefield, actually, when she's trying to come back. I think she wasn't scouting or something. She was just coming back to the castle. And on her way, she runs into a monster, has problems trying to defend herself against the monster, and then Adrian shows up and kills the monster. He's just like, oh, aren't you just so cute and brave, you know, trying to defend yourself against these monsters. Go home, you know, young maiden, and I will hopefully see you later. I mean, he's just real cute, real sexy about it, I guess. And then she finds out he's the king. And so then, in order for there to be peace between his attacking army and her land, they have to get married. There you go. She becomes the queen of his land, which is kind of like the vampire realm, if you will. And he is actually trying to defend his own realm against the monsters that are roaming around. And his ultimate plan is to just kind of conquer the entire continent that they're on. There is a story. It's not just smut. And the story actually was not that interesting to me. It became more interesting as the story went on. So I am interested in actually reading the next book. The smut is on fire in this. I kid you not. Read it, read it, read it. If you want to read something that's going to make you squirm. I don't squirm when I'm reading smut, and I have read some smut that will put some hair on your chest. This one made me squirm. I don't know what it was about it. I think it was the fact that the male character was Alucard. Pretty much Alucard. So like I said, I got a thing for vampires. But yeah, this one was by Scarlett St. Clair, so I'll be reading the next one. The next one's actually not out until Queen of Myth and Monsters, and it's supposed to come out December 27th, so we got a couple months to wait on this. I'll be reading the next one. I think that this one was really fun. I think the story is enough to kind of keep people hooked. Anyway, it's a good piece of work. I enjoyed it a lot. And I think that I'm going to look up more stuff by Charlotte St. Clair. I know that I read A Touch of Darkness, which was pretty good. I have A Touch of Ruin on my TBR. And those are the retellings of Persephone and Hades, if I remember correctly. And then I think she's got some other ones that are about Greek, Roman mythology. I think that those are pretty good. So for far as smut goes, read it. It's excellent. Excellent smut. Let's see, let's give it a 4 or 4.5 because that was really fun. I liked it a lot. Moving on. Let's go ahead and talk about September. September is coming, and I am looking forward to September. I'm looking forward to cold and to cozy sweaters. I need my sweaters back in my life. Oh my gosh. So what I have on my TBR right now, I am actually reading a few things are in the queue right now, and I've actually had to start them because my library holds will expire on them soon, and I'll tell you which ones those are. So Twin Crowns by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Weber. And I'm frankly not that impressed with it so far, but I'm going to throw it into September because it's just so close, and I only just started it, so I'm not even like 10% into it yet, and I need to finish it in like 4 days, so I'm hurrying. So far it's not terribly interesting. It's a YA fantasy. It was on several TikTokers' TBRs, and I mean, it looked like a kind of interesting idea. Twin girls that have been raised by different people, essentially. One is the princess, and this guy who had taken over the kingdom has been raising her, and then the other who is also a princess, but she's not really a princess anymore. She has been raised by a woman who is a witch. Magic is illegal, I guess, in this land. What they want is to put the twin girl on the throne to make witchcraft no longer illegal and to kind of subvert this guy who has taken over the crown. The girl who is the princess was stolen and by the witch and her people. So that's all I know so far about it. It's so, I guess it's not middle grade. It's not middle grade, but it's written for it's really written for a younger audience. It's not very mature in its writing. I'm not jiving with it. I usually like a bit more of a higher fantasy jive. I'm more of a, George R.R. Martin, George R.R. Martin, more of a Sarah Maas, even though Sarah's not really on George's level. I'm more of a Sanderson kind of gal. So there's that, and I'm not really liking it too much. I'm going to power through it and get through it because it's on my TV, it's on my Libby and I need to finish it. So I'm going to get through it, but I don't think I'm going to give it more than like 3 stars right now at all. We'll just see how it goes. Where is it? I am more than halfway through Charles Dickens, and I'm annotating this. I think it's good. I think it's a little dry though. It's not boring. I'm okay with that because what I'm doing, and I decided to do is because I found it a little bit difficult. I don't remember struggling with Charles Dickens' language before. I don't know if it's because it's in English already, because I've read Tolstoy before, and Anna Karenina is one of my favorites. And I don't remember struggling with Anna Karenina at all, because it's a translation, and maybe it's a more current translation, so they modernize the language a little bit, is what I'm thinking. But for some reason, this edition of Great Expectations, I am kind of struggling with the language. So what I decided to do is I downloaded the audiobook version of this. And so I'm listening along and reading at the same time. And I think it's a great way of doing it, especially if you're struggling with the language and if you feel like you're reading the same sentence like 3 or 4 times over and over again. I think it's a good way to get through books that you need to get through. I wanted to finish this book So I will finish it because of that method. A little bit here and there I have, you know, read, then listened later, or listened and then went back and read. So just so that I made sure that I actually saw the text with my own eyes. I have my own feelings on this. I think that it's watching Pip kind of grow up is interesting. I think that there's some things about children characters I have kind of problems with because they always seem like they're too self-aware for the age that they are. And I don't remember how old Pip is. I think maybe he's like 9 or 10 years old when this begins. I could be wrong. But he's such a self-aware, anxious little child that seems to be bossed around and belittled by everybody at the beginning. And nobody seems to give him any respect until, you know, he has money. And we suspect at this point still that Mrs. Havisham is his benefactor, and he's starting to learn more, and he goes to London. So I'm actually at the part now where Pip's sister has just recently passed away. So that's the point where I am, and I should probably finish this up within the next week or so. But otherwise, I mean, so far I like it. I don't hate it. It's not thrilling. I hope that there's some really interesting twist ending. If there is, don't tell me. I know it's like way, way past, you know, and I probably should know already the ending of this, but I just don't. So anyway, we'll see how Great Expectations end. But so far, so good. I'm liking it. Let's see, what else is on my TBR? I have 100 Years of Solitude on my TBR by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I've been wanting to read some of his books. I think that Love in the Time of Cholera is also another book that he's read, and I remember seeing that movie. I'm sorry, another book that he's written. Not read, written. I know that 100 Years of Solitude was on Emmys. She was doing a read-along for that, and I didn't pick it up in time for that, but I am getting it through my library. I'm getting the physical copy. So I think that I will read 100 Years of Solitude because I have heard about Gabriel Garcia Marquez before, and I would like to, you know, kind of get introduced to his work. I wanted to dive into a little bit of poetry this coming September, and I decided that I would pick up Rilke for the first time, Rainer Maria Rilke, and read The Dark Interval. We have had a lot of death in our family over the last couple of years, and so I think it'd be interesting to read a collection of poetry that is about death, and I've heard that Rilke is just outstanding. I know that Rilke is Emmy's favorite, and so I would like to just introduce myself to Rilke, introduce myself to some more poetry, because I don't really read a lot of poetry. Something I'd like to try also this September is to kind of start reading Haruki Murakami. And I think, because I've been watching a lot of YouTube lately, that they've been talking about Murakami. And I think that I want to try it out. And I've not read a lot of magical realism before, so I think that this will be interesting because I know that he's known for that. I know he's known for the surreal, and I've not read a lot of literature that deals in magical realism or the surreal, so I think that I want to try it out. I am going to go in the order of publication, though. This may or may not be the best way of doing it. I thought about reading A Wild Sheep Chase first, or I thought about reading The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, or maybe even Norwegian Wood before, you know, maybe starting with publication order. But I have been able to get a copy of, I think it's Hear the Wind Sing and The Pinball, 1970 something. Through the copy that I got, that I'm getting through the library, it just says Wind/Pinball on it. So I don't know if that was just the publisher's decision to do that, but anyway, I am going to pick that up and I'm going to try it out, and hopefully I won't hate it. I've heard that he has some kind of odd descriptions of women in there, and maybe some odd sexual stuff on occasion, but the rest of his writing is supposedly outstanding, so I will give Murakami a try, and I'll let you guys know what I think. If I don't like Wind Pinball, I'll still go ahead and just read A Wild Sheep Chase anyway, and just so that I can actually read a book that is, I guess, one of his larger books. But I know that The Wild Sheep Chase is part of a trilogy of The Rat, which is Wind, Pinball, and then A Wild Sheep Chase. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm excited about it. I'm kind of nervous to try Murakami, actually. When I was thinking about this, I was like, oh, do I want to actually buy the books? It's kind of hard to find some of these. Maybe I should buy the books. Oh, but what if I don't like it, you know, and all of that. But it'll be fine. It'll be all right. If I am able to borrow this one from the library, and I think I'll be able to get the others too. So we're going for it. It'll be fine. Then for Smut Corner for September, picked this one up, and I need to get reading on it because it's going to be due in like 6 days. And this is the only drawback, I think, to using the library system in Libby, is that you are limited on your time. And if it's a book that is in high demand at that point, then you end up having to return it and then try to borrow it later. So you're always in queue, and I'm constantly in queue for most of the books I'm trying to find, actually. Surprisingly, Murakami, you could get an audio version of that pretty easily. Nobody's reading Murakami around, at least where I'm from. Don't tell anybody. But, you know, like Daughter of the Moon Goddess, I think I was on that waiting list for almost 12 weeks. So that's to consider, you know, think about timing. For Smut Corner is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. And I've seen this all over Book Talk, so I'm just going to give it a go. I've heard that it's kind of like Sarah J. Maas, and I believe there's elves in it and all that, but I really don't know much about it at all. And there was spice. There was one Book Talk I saw that was like a spice level of 7 out of 10 or something like that, which I'm hoping is true, so that way then it can belong in Smut Corner, because otherwise I may end up going back to some Ruby Dixon and maybe reading some more of those Blue Barbarians because it was so horribly entertaining up until the next book from Charlotte St. Clair comes out. So we may end up revisiting our alien friends in the future. I'm just saying, because it was just so dang entertaining, and not to mention the smut was pretty good. Oh man, the Smut Corner is just going to be embarrassing to me one day. You guys are going to catch me saying something really awful. Anyway, so that's it. That's it for September. I hope that I will actually get to even more stuff that I have picked up lately. I, in a book haul, picked this up, William S. Burroughs' Naked Lunch. I want to read it. I really want to read it. Really, really, really want to read it. So we'll try this guy out. I just remember the movie being so crazy, and yeah, I want to read it. I want to read it bad. And this is such a pretty edition. I love this Penguin edition, the Modern Classics Penguin edition. Got the Goldfinch also, and I kind of want to read this one pretty soon too. It's a bit of a honker of a book though, the Goldfinch. I mean, look at that guy. It's just big. It's so big. Yeah, it's 700. Ooh, Donna Tart. Okay, this is long. 769 pages. Big guns. So, yep. I got things to read. I hope that you enjoyed the video, of course, and I will see you all very soon. I should have a book haul up maybe before this video comes out, and that's it. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.